Hello, everybody. My name's Ethan Vaughn. This is Jordan Steffy. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Yes. I heard you are a man of philanthropy and also good philosophy. Will you tell me your journey of how you started Children's River Chants first?
Sure. So I am just the product of amazing people, and it starts with my mom, and then just a whole bunch of people from the Lancaster community who got behind me from the time that I've been, in grade school, and really just empowered me to not only be able to take care of myself and grow as an individual, but to be in a position of leadership. And that's something that I take very, very seriously. And so really the Children's River Chants Foundation, and more recently the Attollo brand, were really just launched kind of in this spirit of the greatest thing that we can do in life is give. But we have to also be in a position to model what we're trying to teach or preach. And so every day I kind of wake up inspired to personally grow and try to be an example, but also to work with amazing people on their journey. And ultimately that's what the Children's River Chants Foundation and Attollo are about.
Yeah, I understand you recently met with Mr. and Mrs. Polite. Mr. Kevin Polite Jr. is the son of Mr. Polite Sr., who served on the council board for Lancaster City, and he wore many hats. May you tell me how you were able to collaborate with the Historic Center and Mr. Kevin Polite Jr., please?
Yeah, so the Polites are obviously a family here in the Lancaster community that are well documented, well known, and have just done so many things to advance the position of all residents, but certainly people of color in this community. And so it is an honor to really just to get to spend time. I knew Mr. Polite Sr. Loosely. I still remember kind of this vivid image when we had Michael Vick here in Lancaster, and Mr. Polite was really excited to meet Michael Vick. But yeah, the Polite family and the initiative and to carry on Nelson Polite Sr.'s legacy is something that is important to me, and anytime that we get a chance to be affiliated or associated with the Polite Foundation, we are honored to do so.
Yeah, I totally agree. Mr. Kevin Polite, he is a very humble person, and his father was kind of like the Martin Luther King of Lancaster City, and giving back to the community, but also putting other people first before himself for a greater cause. And there's been a lot of progress done in Lancaster City and Lancaster County. But back to the foundation, may you tell me the story of how you scored 1,000 points, was able to raise money for a certain student athlete or Conestoga Valley student?
Yeah. So that was a really exciting time. I was about to score 1,000 points in basketball, and simultaneously there was an article in the newspaper about a classmate of mine who was suffering from epilepsy. And so we came up with this idea that we would, for every point that I had scored, we'd kind of raise some money, but more importantly, we would use the money for this student to be able to have a brain surgery. And sure enough, I scored these points and we raised all of this money, and it was a couple months later, but the student who had this surgery showed up at my door, and he was a different person. And so I think from that point, it was the first time that I really saw in a tangible way what supporting others can do, and I never wanted to let that feeling go, and I think that has been a driver for the last 10, 12 years. Yeah,
I understand that's a humbling beginning, because you gave to somebody you knew just in your classroom, but more importantly, you exemplified good leadership and putting someone before yourself, and it goes beyond 1,000 points and accomplishment of notoriety as a student athlete. Speaking of you being a student athlete at Conestoga Valley, I understand you were a 3-sport star. Football, you was the quarterback. Basketball, you was the guard. And for track, you were the man who threw the javelin. Mm-hmm. May you tell me about your journey with Mr. Novak and how he mentored you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Coach Novak was my football coach, and I also was very fortunate to have a great basketball coach in Coach Borden. But Coach Novak and I became close before I even got to high school. He was somebody who I'll never forget. He would come to our practices when I was playing in the midget leagues, and it was just such a big deal. And Mr. Novak was there, and he really kind of served as not only a mentor but a father figure as well to me. And him and his wife Gina have just been huge supporters, and so I started in my 9th grade year in both football and basketball. And I think that those experiences not only conditioned me or prepared me to do well in sports, but I would later on figure out that a lot of those skills were transferable. And I think that that's one of the most powerful things that all athletes can discover, is that the things that it takes to be great in the sport are in many cases things that it takes to be great in life. And so how do we use our experiences and leverage them to do something meaningful in this world?
I understand behind every man's success is a great woman behind you. I know the number one woman behind you was your mom, Miss Sherry Steffy. May you explain how she was able to mold you in the man you are today?
Yeah, I mean, my mom, as I mentioned at the beginning, is just someone who, she'll do whatever it takes, and I think a lot of that kind of mentality rubbed off on me. And but she raised me. She had me as a teenager. For much of my life, she raised me as a single mom, and she just unconditional love, unconditional support. And I think that when you have that, you don't need many people in life. If you have some key people in your life who get behind you and support you, you can still make it with that. And obviously it's great, the more the merrier, but my mom was that consistent support that I had, and that, quite frankly, that I needed.
Yeah, I understand she made a lot of sacrifices, showing up to every game, picking you up after practices, and then she was there for your National Signing Day, where you signed to the University of Maryland, where you met Ralph Friedgen, and of course the Penn State coach James Franklin. May you tell me about how you made the decision for National Signing Day for Maryland University, and also choosing the major that you end up getting 2 degrees from? Sure.
So Coach Franklin actually was at the University of Maryland when I was going through the whole recruiting process, and so he recruited me to the University of Maryland, and we've continued to stay friends ever since. But I just loved the environment at the University of Maryland. It was close enough to home, but not too close. There was a lot of good things happening at the college and the university at the time, and I just felt really supported during the whole recruiting process. And so, I'll never forget thinking one day that, like, literally when I would go out the front gates of the campus, if I take a right, I could be in front of the White House in 15 minutes, or if I took a left, I'd be in Baltimore in 25 or 30 minutes. And so that proximity to 2 major cities where there was so much opportunity was something that made an impact on me then, but I think in hindsight, was even more valuable than I realized. And so it was great to kind of be in these communities where networking was something that was possible, and I could meet just amazing people who I would probably later work with.
Yeah, I understand one of those major people was your mentor, Mr. Ed Woods. He's been very supportive of the foundation, and also your work that you do outside the foundation, going the extra mile. May you tell me about your relationship with him and how he has been a key figure in backing you up?
Yeah, so the Ed and Kelly Woods have just been, we talk about unconditional support. There were many times when, from a football standpoint, things weren't going well at the University of Maryland, and in those moments, it's never big things, but there's just little things that people will do that will give you the sense that, if I could be honest, that they're kind of fair weather fans. And Ed and Kelly Woods were just such an example of what it meant to be unconditional supporters. And when things were going well, they were there. When things weren't going well, they were there. And that has just really, they've both been an amazing model of what it means to be great mentors and supporters. And, it sounds cliche, but people like that become much more like family than they do anything else.
Yeah, speaking of family, I understand you are connected with the Bironas family, such as Nico, who runs Hailgans Bironas, George Bironas, who's a West Virginia graduate, and his family. Maybe explain how are you able to get involved with the Bironases?
Yeah. So the Bironas family has been kind of a cornerstone of this organization. They've been supporters really from the beginning, but they've also, it's one thing for people to financially support, which we are so grateful for. But it's another thing when you just have people in your corner who are just great role models in everything they do. The Bironas family is a family that stands for something. They stand for inclusiveness. They stand for hard work. They stand for excellence, quite frankly. And so to have them involved as financial supporters is amazing. But to have them as somebody that we can look to and emulate is something that I think is equally as powerful.
Yes, and I understand you was a 3-time winner of the Extraordinary Gift recently, this past November of 2018. And you had a great staff, great supporters, not only just in the Lancaster City and the county, but also different parts of the world. How has the Extraordinary Gift not only impacted the foundation, but also Lancaster County in general?
So the Extraordinary Give has been something that is really an opportunity for us to bring together all of the different parties that are involved in this organization, all of the people that make this thing go, from the young people that we support and their families, to some of our donors, to team members, and everyone in between. And it brings us together, and it gives us a day for us to not only raise a whole bunch of money, but to just kind of go after something as a collective. And I think it's so powerful when you just kind of can go through and experience the process with other people, and that's what the Extraordinary Give does for us. And so when you think about it, I mean, this year we had over $500,000 donated in one day. We had nearly 2,000 people who, gave up their hard-earned money to get behind this organization. And those things are powerful. And so the Extraordinary Give is something that we have been very grateful for and excited to participate in.
And I understand what all the success you've had, you have made countless sacrifices, from sleep to taking up of your own time to help other people in need, but also paying it forward. And I understand, Mr. Darryl Daniels expected you to pay that forward, like how he paid it forward for you when Mr. Novak was the head coach at CV. But you tell me how Mr. Daniels made sure you paid it forward, but also how he paid it forward to you.
Yeah, sure. So Darryl Daniels is somebody else who just, my story makes no sense. And my story today doesn't exist without Darryl Daniels. And again, I think as it relates to paying it forward, I think part of the magic of what Darryl and so many others did for me is there wasn't this direct expectation that I would do this for someone else. It was more so that it just kind of happened more organically, that like I just wanted to be like them, and part of who they are is givers, and part of who they are people who think about others. And so Darryl was that way. I mean, he was just somebody that I wanted to be like, and want to be like. He's curious, he's a learner, he's a hard worker, as you mentioned. And so, Darryl was somebody who held me accountable to my dreams. And part of kind of chasing your dreams, and one thing that I learned from him was this idea of sacrifice that you talked about. And, most people in this world are not willing to give up what they want right now for what they really want. And he just kind of continued to hammer that home, that we had to make long-term sacrifices. We had to be, think beyond just the kind of immediate moment and think about the future. And if I could do that, he promised that things would be drastically different in my life. And boy, that promise was something that was so true.
And I understand sacrifice is part of the main pillars with the foundation, and sacrifice has to be intentional. So if it's not intentional, it's just a dream.
Yeah, no question, no question. There's, I like that a lot, actually. I think just intentionality as a whole is so important. Somebody said, you know, you don't need a map if you don't, I forget what the quote was, but something to the effect that, like, you know, you can go anywhere if you don't have a place that you're trying to actually go, and you will go anywhere. So I think that it's important to dream, and then I think it's important to write those dreams down, and the moment you do that, it becomes a goal, and then it's important to kind of come up with a strategy, and you know, when you do that, and then execute on it, and when you do that time and time again, it's just amazing how the circumstances in your life change.
I totally agree, because you've made a difference in a lot of students in the Lancaster County community, and you recently reached out to York Area School District, and you're making a difference there. Can you tell us what it takes to get into the Attollo Prep program for students or parents who want their child to take their education to the next level or need that extra support?
Sure. So Attollo works with juniors and seniors as they think about life after high school. And I was saying to someone recently that, you know, for a lot of my life, I actually tried to run a whole bunch of races, but none of those races were my race. And I think that what's most important for all of us is to know the race that we are running as individuals. So as a result of that, Attollo is about getting to students as individuals and exploring what life will look like after high school. The majority of the programs in our or the majority of the students in our program will go on to college. But there are also some students in our program who will go on to serve this country in the military, or some students who will get a trade. And like, we celebrate those the same exact way, because it's really about them understanding what their options are, and then finding something that fits them and their race, and then going after it. But there's some things that we don't compromise on, right? So excellence is one of them. And we believe that, like, we have a finite amount of time here on earth, and I don't believe that we were brought here to be anything but spectacular and impactful, and to change this world. And so regardless of what path you feel is yours, there's a certain cadence and a certain tempo and certain expectations that exist, regardless of where a young person goes after high school. And what that leads to are people in our community who have a certain sense of purpose. And when people have purpose, that becomes contagious. And so just like negative things can become contagious, I think it's all about kind of creating this critical mass of people in this community who walk with purpose. And boy, when that happens, I'm really excited about that day.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. It's like being excited for a new journey in life also requires letting certain people go in life, because certain times you start to outgrow people. But that's all part of the journey in life, because it gets lonely at the top, but it gets crowded at the bottom. And in life, we have to decide where we want to be: a leader, a follower, or a servant.
Yeah. I mean, a leader, a follower, or a servant. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to the servant piece, I think I'd probably phrase it in, like, you know, just being a giver, you know. And I think from a leadership and a follower standpoint, I think there are times when both are applicable, right? And it's important. Sure, everybody wants to kind of lead, but I think it's also important to be a great follower. And I think oftentimes the greatest leaders are the greatest followers. And so it's about that. I have to say, before we close this up, that it's such a pleasure and an honor to have known you now the last
9 years.
9 years.
We first met in church at Inlight Ministries, and
Yep.
I remember when I used to see you on Football Friday highlights. Then I saw you playing quarterback for Maryland, and then that Saturday night at church, it was just a coincidence, and then look where we are now.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And you, and your story, which is people know about, but I know that more and more people are going to continue to learn your story, as you are such an inspiration, and somebody that we can all look to and emulate. You symbolize resilience, you symbolize growth, you symbolize somebody who's God-fearing, and I think that the more that all of us can kind of follow in those footsteps as well, this community will be a better place. So Ethan, thank you so much for having me.
You too, Jordan. Thanks for the interview, and thanks for your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're the man, boss.